Psst.
Level up.
It's Mrs. Klein.
And Mr. Creighton.
We are here right now for your next podcast, moving along into Chapter 10. It's Lesson 1, The Role of the Catholic Church. In this section, you guys, you're going to learn about the role of the Catholic Church in the rise of feudal societies in Europe. Okay, there's a lot of vocabulary terms this time around, and many of them are people, so you're going to want to make sure that you're able to kind of keep who's who at the forefront for you. The terms this time are clergy, Pope Gregory VII, religious order, Francis of Assisi, and Thomas Aquinas. Remember that when you hear this sound, you've heard a vocabulary term.
All right, so going through the big idea, conflicts bring about change. And our first essential question, what impact did feudalism have on medieval Europe?
Number 2, how important is keeping order?
Number 3, how do civilizations change and adapt after conflict?
And finally, how does religion play an important role in shaping civilizations? And clearly that's pretty much what this lesson is about.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And as always, you guys, again, I just want to remind you, you're going to have that podcast quiz coming up.
All right, the first section for the podcast is Power of the Roman Catholic Church. You can find this on pages 321 to 323. The question you guys should be thinking about, how did the Catholic Church become so powerful in medieval Europe? At that time in Europe, there was no strong central governments or powerful rulers to unite people. Central authority was weak. Although at first the Catholic Church was small, it was very well organized. Church officials provided strong leadership at many levels from the Pope to the local priests. In time, this helped the Church gain religious and political power and great wealth.
The clergy were the leaders of the Church. These men, especially the cardinals and bishops who filled the top positions in the Church, came from Europe's richest and most powerful families. They were well educated and could read and write Latin.
In time, the Church influenced political and legal affairs as well as religious issues. Church officials took a key role in political life and assumed great legal power. Church leaders set up courts with power over those who broke church law. These courts decided cases and set punishments. The political power of the Church reached across Europe.
The great wealth of the Church strengthened its religious and legal powers. As the Church expanded, it acquired money and property. In time, the income from church property made it richer than any single European country. Church leaders had more power than most European rulers. Okay, to be thinking, and you should be able to answer this question, you guys. What were 3 reasons why the Catholic Church became so powerful in medieval Europe?
Our next section is conflict between monarchs and the papacy. You can find this on page 323. The question you guys should be thinking about, what was the cause of conflict between Henry VII and Pope Gregory VII, and what was the outcome? For a long time, the Pope and other church officials cooperated with European leaders. In the 11th century, this changed. One cause of conflict was the struggle for power between Church and Holy Roman Empire.
Okay, all right. You guys, the Holy Roman Empire was spread across most of present-day Germany and northern Italy. At this time, King Henry IV, was its ruler. He built his political power by appointing key church officials, such as bishops. Henry did so even though he was not a church official. The king depended on these officials to help him hold on to political power. This was important to Henry because many nobles resented his power.
In 1075, Pope Gregory VII stopped King Henry IV, not the 7th, the 4th, from making these appointments. He ruled that only the Church could appoint religious officials. The Pope governed the Church from northern Italy. He feared that the Holy Roman Empire's control over northern Italy would threaten his own power.
Okay, King Henry didn't like it, so he fought back. He brought together the bishops who supported him, and they declared that Pope Gregory had not been fairly elected. Gregory reacted by deciding to excommunicate or banish Henry from the Church. That's a super big deal, you guys, because at this time, everybody's goal is to get to heaven, and the only way you're getting through heaven is to become like you are a part of a member of the Church, and if you get excommunicated, you're not going to heaven.
Exactly. After the Pope took this action, many nobles and church officials turned against Henry. Fearing he would lose his throne, Henry asked the Pope to forgive him. The Pope agreed, ending this conflict. But European political leaders and the Church would clash again over religious and political power. The question you guys should be able to answer in your head right now, explain the cause and outcome of the conflict between Pope Gregory VII and King Henry IV.
All right, the next section you're going to find on pages 324 and 325, and it's called The Church and Society. Be thinking of this question as you listen along. What role did the Catholic Church play in education? Okay, the most important way that the church influenced education was through its religious orders. This is a group of people who live together and follow the same religious rules. These orders included monastic orders where monks and nuns lived. They were called monastic orders because their members lived in monasteries.
Friars were another type of religious order. They traveled from place to place preaching and spreading church beliefs. Friars owned nothing and lived by begging. Italian friar Francis of Assisi founded an order of friars known as the Franciscans.
Monastic orders set up schools and libraries all over Europe. But by the 1100s, there were not enough of those schools for all of those who wanted to attend. Students came to cities where many learned teachers lived. They gathered to hear these teachers, and in time, these gatherings grew into universities.
Church scholars also aided education by studying the writings of ancient Greek and Roman thinkers. In the mid-1200s, the Christian scholar Thomas Aquinas studied the works of the Greek philosopher Aristotle. He used his knowledge to argue that church and government could get along as long as government laws followed the law of God. In time, such ideas led to new ways of thinking about government. The question you guys should be able to answer in your head right now: how did the church help educate people in medieval Europe?
Okay, and one more time, you guys, we've got that list of vocabulary terms, so you're going to want to make sure that you are able to identify these words: clergy, Pope Gregory VII, religious order, Francis of Assisi, and Thomas Aquinas. All right, you guys, it's quitting time.
Current mood: tired.